Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Ahead of the Curve show. I'm your host, Geoffrey Platt, and today I've got another wonderful guest on the show, Mr. Roy C. Anthony, whom I previously worked with at Christie Digital. Roy, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Geoffrey. I'm really happy to be here.
Really happy to have you. So for those of you who are not very familiar with who you are and kind of what your background is, I based the question of who and what you are. Would you mind giving us a little background of where you started, where you came from, and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Well, I'm easy to sum up in a nutshell. I'm a CG fanboy, basically, computer graphics fanboy, ever since I was a kid. I'm also a photographer, animator, technical artist, designer of interactive immersive systems. I really love to mix art and technology together. And being a passionate autodidact, I'm always learning. I'm always pursuing, new techniques and new technologies to try to expand my palette for creativity. But I'm also a community builder and passionate volunteer. I've served on committees at ACM Siggraph, the Visual Effects Society, and local arts organizations in my community.
So you've got a lot going on.
I'm busy sometimes. there are some experiences, especially when volunteering for Siggraph, which requires an awful lot of communications like this, through screen sharing, where everybody was on Eastern time, and I was in Japan at 4:30 in the morning, jet lagged all to hell, just trying to hold myself together long enough to get through a meeting. But you know what? It's what we do. It's what we do to give back.
Yeah, and it's all part of the experience when you really put it together. I can remember those days and those nights in Japan as well, trying to communicate back over here on the East Coast and having calls, and yeah, it could be quite brutal depending on the time of day.
Yeah, you definitely acquire a different sense of humor when you're that jet lagged.
Yeah, things get a little bit more blurry around that time.
Well, if people might want to know what would take me to Japan, what would take me all around the world, it's mostly because of my professional angle, actually. I'm known as a designer and integrator of leading technologies and immersive and interactive displays, specifically targeting advanced display technologies. That's where the bulk of my career has existed. And I've been active since the mid-90s, started in Pro VR, moved on to simulation, entertainment applications. Mostly my work has targeted practical technical arts or sciences applications, with a little bit of newer work in audience engagement, narrative, and discourse.
Cool. So just kind of rewinding your history back a little bit, how did you end up getting into VR? What kind of drove you down that avenue?
Well, so I saw a film when I was a kid. It was actually a couple of films, but I saw a specific film when I was a kid, and it was The Lawnmower Man, and it was awful.
Everything about it was, The Lawnmower Man.
Everything about it was terrible, but like at that time, you could go to the arcade, and there was a VR experience that you could engage in, and Nintendo was just starting to come out with their soon-to-be ill-fated Nintendo VR, and there was, so in the consumer space, there was sort of excitement about what these virtual worlds could be. I found that peripherally interesting, but I wanted to be an animator. So the film Jurassic Park kind of blew my mind in that it was the first time to use fully CG dinosaurs in and around live action. It tastefully composited together and produced an imaginary world that I could never imagine being in. And I remember often thinking, if VR was this good, like that would be truly engaging. So I went to Siggraph as a young person, and I had some fortuitous engagements and met some folks. And next thing you know, I'm part of a startup company called Fake Space. And for 11 years, we brought commercial VR solutions to the market. It was a wild ride. It definitely wasn't animation. It was very, very, very different. And it's when I first became introduced to real-time technologies and I acquired a passion for technology as it can be applied to art.
Yeah, that's actually pretty wild. So just out of curiosity, what did you guys focus on while you were working with your startup?
The work that I'm the most proud of is the work that we did in making design possibilities accessible for folks who are working in automotive design. I am super passionate about film and photography, but I'm also a big car geek, and cars and motorcycles. I've got gas and oil in my veins, as it were. And I had opportunities to build, these fantastic display devices called CAVEs, Cave Automatic Virtual Environments, recursive acronym, for Ford Motor Company, BMW, General Motors, Toyota, like all of these great companies, and at these fantastic design studios like Toyota Calty or Honda R&D in California, or the BMW Design Studio in Munich in Germany, and being able to construct these devices and see what the technical artists were doing with them. Like this was a way of basically making it possible for a young designer to create a bold design and not have to battle through the issues of trying to get access to the full design studio to sculpt out of clay, a gigantic full-scale replica of a car. They could build and design this on their desktop workstation and then push it into the cave environment and experience it and share their design with their team. This early democratization of content and tools for sharing and collaboration was a really exciting part of my career, and obviously I think for the industry became a really fascinating and new way of working. It was great to be part of that.
Yeah, I was just about to say, what a great time to be around, and what a great time to kind of be part of something that was just kind of coming into fruition, and and technologies that are being developed. I think very similarly to how we see the situations as of today and as of now, with these workflows that are rapidly being prototyped and being pushed out the door. And I think it's actually quite an exciting time for a number of people right now within the industry.
Yeah, I would certainly agree. Again, it's that continuing trend of the democratization of tools, and with real-time technologies, having been engaged with them in the mid 90s, everything looked like Lawnmower Man or worse. I remember my getting in front of my first Onyx rack mount workstation and connecting that thing up to a cave environment and playing around with just some of the built-in programs just for giggles. And I found the Buttonfly demo, which famously is in the scene in Jurassic Park, where the girl sits down at the computer, goes, "This is Unix, I know this," and she proceeds to fly around the Buttonfly demo. but that was state-of-the-art graphics back then. That's awful. But now, those CG dinosaurs that we would see, masterfully created through an offline rendering process here in 2020, that's straight off the display and into the camera, right? Like that's just mind-blowing. It's insane that we've come so far in such a relatively short period of time.
Yeah, no kidding. Just the evolution of it all within the last 20 years has just been remarkable about how far the technology has come. So I just wanted to kind of give a shout out to some of our DG folks that are viewing as well right now. Just saying hi to Brett and Christy, of course, for helping us out with ahead of the curve and helping us with some of the marketing pushes that we've been doing lately, and also to Berto, of course, who is one of the guests on the show. And I'm going to foreshadow a little bit. Berto will be back with us again towards the end of the month. On a panel discussion that we're going to be building out. So
Brilliant.
That's some pretty exciting stuff as well. So Roy, I have to ask you, with your work presently, kind of what are your thoughts with real-time technology as we are sitting today?
Well,
it's a loaded question.
Yeah, I know, but since it's an easy one actually to answer, it's actually like I couldn't have been handed a more soft question. The fantastic thing about the last 2 years in particular is so exciting. But since I first became involved, like I mentioned, real-time visuals weren't spectacular in the 90s, not what we would consider production quality. And folks like myself did our best to use what limited resources we had available to make those worlds as believable as possible. and the biggest disadvantage, I think, of that time was the accessibility. Like I was in a pretty unique space that I had access to the tools and technology that could enable the graphics that were possible at that time, the high-end graphics possible at that time, to be able to have access to them and to be able to work with them. But that wasn't everybody's story. Example of the great thing about today is these innovations and solutions are getting more and more accessible. Within the last 2 years, at Siggraph 2018 in Vancouver, NVIDIA's Turing GPU dropped, and that brought RTX onto the scene.
I remember that.
It was a big day.
I remember that. Yes, it was a big day.
That was a big day. Before that day, there was some fringe work happening with real-time technologies, and real-time technologies were being used, for live graphics, live motion graphics and broadcast. And, so there were some other early implementations of AR in camera that were being done up to that point. And then previs, real-time was being used for previs, but it's not something that you would think of as, let's make this, cinema production quality.
Yep.
Yeah, but then August 2018 comes around and just punches your idea of reality in the face and says, well, great news, everybody. We're going to bring the benefits to traditional production workflows and digital content creation, these accelerations of your offline rendering process, which is going to enable you to be able to get high quality output quicker, which is great. So you can produce more work. But also for this nascent real-time media and entertainment group, that you're a member of and I'm a member of, spooling up, we suddenly had access to these tools at very accessible prices, and all these technologies were no longer locked away and required assembly. Artists could now engage with these tools kind of at more and more of an equal level as this democratization of tools and technologies just continued to accelerate. We saw in these last, if I just pick on the last decade, 2010 to 2020. Film in-camera process for film, the idea of having a backdrop that you're composing in camera and you're using in your final shot. Battle of Britain in 1969. Like if you saw Battle of Britain, it's a great example of projection-based in-camera process. It is fantastic. It's been studied to death. Definitely, if you're in any way geeky about the past history of special effects and visual effects, definitely check out the Visual Effects Society Monster Handbook, now in its 3rd edition, for Visual Effects Society artists to learn to get spooled up. Definitely check that out. It'll cover this. But basically, in the last 10 years, the film Gravity comes out in 2013, and it's using a cave-like display for accurate lighting on the filmed actors in situ. And then the film Allied in 2016 is using LED displays and projection-based displays for lighting reference as well as in-camera process, digital in-camera process. And moving forwards, geniuses at ILM, they're in the lab cooking up some genius brilliance as always. They unleash upon the world some cinematic film and television solutions, leveraging kind of the best of all of the innovations that have happened within those last 10 years, putting it out into the world as a brave step forward. This is a final in-camera composited real-time and physical set merged together in one fully let's take it to print, let's get this out on air, type solution. So it's just fantastic that we're here today, and that same technology that they're using to build sets like the virtual sets on Mandalorian, that same technology is it's expensive, but it's accessible to individuals out there. Small studios can now start to go to a conference like Siggraph 2020, which covered this emerging new world in-camera process that is often being dubbed virtual production. And taking virtual production environments at Siggraph 2020 and exposing them in even more detail. So if you want to get caught up on the latest bleeding edge tech, definitely go to s2020.siggraph.org and sign up for the conference and view some of the on-demand content for the conference. The conference may have ended, but that on-demand stuff's still out there, so you can actually still get up to speed on some of that stuff.
I think that's one of the cool advantages actually of, again, where we are right now. And one of the, I think, silver linings that have come out of the pandemic is the production quality of content, and live-based content has just kind of, again, gone through the roof. There's been a lot more focus on producing things now that can be streamed, and being able to produce things that can be, put online in a much easier and organized manner. So just switching gears a little bit, Andrew Lazaro just asked a really quick question about kind of more towards your job currently, but what do you think about the accessibility, or sorry, what do you think about that accessibility, and can it open up to more high school or university students? Does Ventuz do any school partnerships for licensing?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it's there are definitely learning paths available for lots of creative-based technologies, technology solutions like Touch Designer, Ventuz, Notch, Unreal, and Unity. Focusing on Ventuz, yeah, people can go to Ventuz.com. You go over to our pricing page, and it's not scary. You scroll down. There's Community Edition. It's free. Click on that deal. Grab yourself a license, and you're able to start building Ventuz at no cost today.
There we go. That is a pretty straight and easy answer. I just wanted to comment on Brett's little comment. Happy to see this restraint on the term XR. Brett and I had a very interesting conversation last week for about an hour, talking about the term extended reality and kind of what that covers and what that fully entails. So it's just kind of fun. It's been an interesting topic, in all honesty. Really clearly define what extended reality truly is.
Yeah, I've always interpreted it as a catch-all for virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality. I think most people would consider it that catch-all, but it sometimes is also becoming like holograms. Everything's a hologram. Most things that are a hologram are in fact not a hologram by definition.
I am here, just so you know, I'm physically here.
Yeah, so there's always a strange use of terms, but I can understand the desire to use XR instead of saying VR, AR, MXR, or having to educate people on three different things and what they mean. Just using this catch-all, yep, that's good. So what up? XR. Boop.
XR, we're done. We're in. So just kind of going back a little bit as well on your experience kind of within Siggraph, can you talk a little bit about that journey and, kind of how things evolved over the course of the years and your involvement inside the organization?
Of course. Siggraph for me, I first was an attendee. All right, I went to this show. I read about it in CineFX and in Animation Magazine, and I wanted to go to this holy land, which is where all of the best animated shorts were being screened for the first time, and where all the technology was being exhibited for the first time. I wanted to go and be with these people at this.
Who wouldn't want to go
at this mecca? And so as an attendee, I would go to Siggraph every year, and I still do. It's my school, it's my muse, my inspiration. It's also my community where I can go and just be me with no pretense. I'm kind of one of the crowd. I'm actually possibly the most boring person at Siggraph. I've never really truly fit in any other community, but I definitely do there. It feels like my tribe. It's a great place to be as an attendee, and as somebody who's looking to expand their tool chest as well as their context to help them learn. It's a great place to go.
I would wholeheartedly agree with you there, 120%. I remember walking the floor. I think for me, my first Siggraph was probably about 7 or 8 years ago, and I remember walking the floor there, and some of the technologies that were just being showcased on the exhibit floor were just mind-blowing to see the advancements and see where things were. I didn't even know that we were even that far down the road.
Yeah, and as a professional, attending Siggraph, like, let's take the attendee, I want to learn some stuff hat off. It's professional. I have some products and some solutions I want to get out into the market. at FakeSpace, we started showing our early technology solutions in the emerging technologies track at Siggraph, also producing some papers and contributing to some art exhibits. In 1998, we transitioned to a full exhibitor, and our business just took off like a rocket. We went from being kind of fringe, VR is interesting, to holy crap, how do we fill these orders? It was a great moment. You know, I was with FakeSpace for 11 years, and every single 11 that we were there, we were at Siggraph every single year in force. You know, both to keep our team fresh, but also to show what we were doing. Because you're right, Geoffrey. The exhibition hall at Siggraph, while we started in emerging tech, which is fringy, you can't buy this stuff yet. There often isn't much differentiation on the exhibition hall, because the stuff you see that you can buy is just like, how is that available?
You're like, what?
And that's always a great thing. But, you know, I've also contributed. So when I was with Christie Digital, and you and I both worked there for a time,
Yeah.
You know,
You longer than myself, but yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I'll give away my age. You know, I was with Fake for 11. I was with Christie for 13. You know, I'm definitely not a young spring chicken anymore. But you know, with Christie, you know, I would still go and, you know, evangelize Siggraph to as many people that, you know, wouldn't tell me to shut up, you know, to bring them to the conference to get inspired. And a lot of the innovations and ideas that myself and my colleagues that, you know, did drink my Kool-Aid, you know, led to a lot of really exciting things that actually ended up happening at Christie. In 2012, we unveiled work in collaboration with Screen Industries Research and Training, Sheridan College, York University, the filmmaker Douglas Trumbull, the folks at Park Road Post, and Lightstorm Entertainment. It was a monster crew of amazing people. A whole bunch of research in and around high frame rate, and high frame rate is applied to stereoscopic cinema. Some of the papers that were authored are still seminal. They're still referenced to seminal works, which is like, has for a guy like me who's, you know, about as dumb as a 2x4, like, to be able to contribute something to the community that can resonate with them in that way is a true highlight of my professional career applied to you know, attendance at Siggraph. But we also in 2015 in emerging tech, you know, emerging tech is also for companies that have neat research. You know, Christie showed off some tech that I helped develop and bring to market in auto-calibrating projection mapping tools. This emerging tech demo, it also featured, you know, a piece of my art that I was really passionate about creating as the centerpiece. It was a study involving distortions, exaggeration, and lack of embellishment through kind of an imitationalism approach. I can tell you more about that piece if you're interested, but the too long don't read is, I went to New York, I photographed a bunch of brownstone buildings, I 3D modeled said brownstone building, printed it a meter by a meter by a meter, and then projected itself back onto itself with an auto calibration solution, which sounds reductive and boring, but, you know, from a technical standpoint, the level of detail and fidelity in that final model and the simulated day to night environment that it would move through, alongside the auto calibration component, it was a really, truly, like, I felt it was a beautiful model. It was a beautiful experience. And
I think it was as well. I mean, I experienced that for the first time, seeing it on the trade show floor. I believe it was like Infocom.
Same year, yeah.
I don't even remember. Yeah, around the same year.
Same year.
And it was in a secluded little booth in the back. And I remember going back there and just looking at it and going, "Wow, this is some very special technology that's being developed here." And, you know, I already saw a case study for it moving forward. And that was actually one of the moments where I went into Christie and I looked at them as a technology leader at that time, and still is. And I was like, wow, it'd be really interesting to kind of dive in and get into this company and check out what they're doing more. And I could tell you, the course of the time that I was there, even though it was a lot shorter than yours, it was incredible to see the work that was being done behind the scenes and the R&D that was being put into a lot of forward-thinking, you know, technology during that time. So that was, It was a very special moment. Also a moment for me, and a huge moment of transition as well. So that was really, really cool. Really, really interesting part for me too.
Well, and relevant to this discussion, we couldn't say this at Infocom. We could at Siggraph, but we couldn't say this at Infocom. But it was not using a traditional media server. It was using real-time technologies to execute. So it was real-time rendered in the moment, fully interactive. You could reorient the projectors and reproject itself, and it would faithfully map back to its really, really tight pixel pitch end result. And because, things like cell phones were getting really common, that was my pixel pitch target. We were about 50% off of hitting the target by the time we were done building the thing, because these bloody things innovate so quickly. But we were close. We were close. But I've also been a volunteer with Siggraph. I was lucky in 2013 to kind of be put under the wing of MK Haley at Disney, Jerome R.M. Smith of 2K Games, and the inimitable Jerome Solomon, who's the Dean of Cogswell College and Siggraph volunteer superstar, also the chair of Siggraph 2017. He brought me in as under his wing as a mentor. I've got a history of truly great mentors that I owe everything to, and he's one of them. And
again, one of the wonderful benefits of attending Siggraph and taking advantage of being part of it.
Yeah, it's just it's the access to these. Everybody wants to give back, and he wanted to give back, and he picked me, and I'm so happy he did, because I took over production sessions from him in the production track at Siggraph, and I was the chair for production sessions at Siggraph 2014 in Vancouver and 2015 in Los Angeles, and at both with my number two, Emily Hsu, she's now with Blizzard Entertainment, but at the time she was with Leica. We knocked out 20 to 25 monster 90-minute production sessions, diving deep into the art and technology of the most incredible visual effects experiences. I don't know the production sessions has ever been as big as it was in those years where those innovations were coming so fast and furious. It still is definitely a monster program at Siggraph, but we were really lucky in the years that we were participating. 20 really right up until today. Like, that was kind of the start of this crazy rise in advances in production techniques and real-time techniques. And so some of the stuff that's in those years would just have been fantastic to see. But following that, I continued to volunteer because I'm a glutton for the punishment. And I was honored to accept Computer Animation Festival Director for Siggraph 2016. And as a guy who, grew up wanting to be an animator, I just wanted to breathe life into a sack of flour, damn it. That's what I wanted to do. It's what I did with the edges of every notebook I had at school. I just constantly tried to create life where there wasn't any. And to be able to be the festival director for this thing that actually drew me to Siggraph the first time was a really nice kind of bookend to my Siggraph experience overall. I still get chills up and down my spine when I think about it. It might be strange for the listeners to think about this, but you just imagine if there was something that meant so much to you as an individual, and then you were able to immediately give that thing back to other people, right? To let them have that experience. That kind of closure is just a fantastic experience, and it's something that was only possible through Siggraph.
Yeah, I can totally understand and relate to that. I think, again, for me, one of the big things and changes in my career was to start working on things to be able to give back to our community. And, one of the big reasons as well in producing and building up this webcast show that we're doing now every week.
You're doing it.
Having these conversations and hopefully breathing some life and some inspiration to the people that are viewing, and just having some great engaging conversations during some times that are very difficult for some people presently. So
yeah.
So as far as projection mapping, I know this is kind of a huge part of your background and some of the works that you've done. How do you feel about the progression of projection mapping today and its viability?
You know, the one thing that projection has always done, back in the day when it was VR, projection-based VR and cave automatic virtual environments, to today where we're transforming the very structure of an architectural edifice through projecting light. Projectors, they make very, very large images relatively inexpensively for, you know, the amount of surface area you can cover.
Yes, I was just about to say they
a
can
thing.
cover an immense amount of surface area.
And the brightness has gone up and up and up. The ability to get 10-bit color on these devices now is offering fantastic opportunities to start exploring, working with these surfaces that you're projecting on. And I'll explain what I mean by that. There's a process called radiometric compensation, which is based on taking a look at a surface object, like a block of wood or my coaster with its different colored patterns of brown and dark areas and light areas. And if you have a 10-bit display device, but you want to reproduce effectively maybe an NTSC color palette, something that we would be used to seeing, like a reduced color palette. I should have said Rec 709, but whatever. You want to get to that endpoint so that your viewer is seeing something that they appreciate. And it's happening at night, so you don't have to worry about projection's major problem, which is you can't project dark. It just doesn't happen. So whatever your brightness level is the new black level, and everything is above that. So it kind of crushes your dynamic range quite a bit. You have, with these 10-bit devices, the ability to use some of that extra color that's available to you, that extra structure that's available to you, to try to repopulate and redistribute some of your brightest brights, because projectors are also super bright these days, crazy bright these days, and very high resolution. So you can pick those areas, the mortar and the brick, and choose to dim that down and maybe add a little bit of color to it so that you can make the red part of the brick look tonally very similar. There's specifically a book that everybody on this call should get. Everybody should get this. It's primarily built around research from 2011 to, I'll give you two books actually, 2011 to 2014. The first one is called Spatial AR. It's by Ramesh Raskar and Oliver Bimber. And it was a huge influence for me with some of the research that I did when I was at Christie, both in automatic calibration and application of real-time technologies to that, 3D world building, and the concept of radiometric compensation, or compensating for a non-perfect display surface, was first introduced to me. Back when that book came out, you could only achieve these results in a post-process. However, today, you can do these post-processes in real time very effectively using either a real-time compositing engine. You could think about lots of different solutions on the market that could potentially do this kind of real-time IPP effect. The Ventuz can do real-time IPP effects, for instance, but other compositors can as well. And you now can access this power relatively cheaply and inexpensively. There's also some components in that book about how to build multi-display projection solutions. And that'll lead me to my second book. Aditi Majumdar, who's a fantastic researcher and a brilliant mentor. She is such a beautiful person. She's at UC Davis in California. And she literally wrote the book called, I think it's called Practical Projection or something like that. You'll have to look it up. Aditi Majumdar is the author, but it's like Practical Projection or something like that. And she specifically looks at multi-display calibration, and her work, which continues to today. Raskar and Bimber stopped contributing in and around 2017, but Aditi has just continued, and her lab has continued innovating in this space, and she's looking at automatically color matching multiple displays, which is relevant if you're building a segmented direct view display, even like an LED wall that you want to keep where all the LEDs sort of look like they're in the same color temperature universe, even though they might be from a different batch. There's some solutions there, so her research is just fantastic. And if that wasn't enough, and you want to just bring up the little screen thingy on the screen share on the other side, I adore Japan, and I follow 2 universities in Japan, and one of them, Watanabe, in particular, has some fantastic ultra high frame rate real-time projection mapping on objects that move. This realistic dynamic projection mapping using real-time ray tracing, so it's exceptional image quality, as well as projection mapping system for a widely dynamic sphere with circumferential markers. That is just a super geeky way of saying we tracked an object and projection mapped it as it moved. Definitely check the OR on this. You've got to check it. Like, they're scanning books in real time. They're projecting onto moving sheets of fabric and mapping an object and maintaining its orientation.
I was just saying, this was also showcased at Siggraph as well, wasn't it? A few years ago?
Yep. So this particular lab has been contributing to Siggraph in this space within the last 5 years. I would say their contributions started to ramp up. They really became super relevant in the last 2. So, again, high speed projection is becoming more and more available. We know lots of projector companies that make such things. And the idea of high speed image capture, analysis, and then reprojection is a thing that is becoming more and more commonplace. If you watch the 30XX release from our friends at NVIDIA yesterday, then you probably would have seen some pretty staggering throughput potential in that GPU. And it's solutions like that that make it so it's now possible for regular people to access these kinds of solutions. So definitely check the OR on these guys. They are great. If you don't know what check the OR is, by the way, it's a Canadian thing. Probably only Ontario. Definitely should stop using it in public. But another thing in and around...
I think you should keep it going, in all honesty. You should be trend-setting.
And another thing in projection is just the idea of taking an input and using that input to dynamically alter the result. So it's this idea of style transfer. And people have seen style transfer happen before. But again, for the most part, prior to 2019, it was a offline process. It was something that took some time to calculate, that made it difficult. However, here we are sketching in real time. This is part of the real-time live reel, by the way, for Siggraph 2020. Oh, sorry, the technical previews trailer, but it's also demonstrated in detail in the go to YouTube's ACM Siggraph's YouTube and check out the real-time live reel, which is now posted on YouTube, from what I understand. And you can see this demonstrated in detail and length, where they discuss the actual research itself. So really, truly fantastic work. If you haven't done, go here. watch the on-demand content. It's totally worth doing. But
yeah,
there's some other exciting areas.
I didn't have a chance at all during that week. I had basically the full access to the conference, and I did not have one moment of that whole week free. It was free the week before, and then I got booked solid. So I'm definitely going to spend some time, probably over the course of the next few days, checking out some of the sessions. So Roy, let's talk about
the amount of content that they have available for streaming is incredible.
Yeah. So Roy, I wanted to speak to you as well a little bit just about your art and about what you've been kind of experimenting in. I see you've been now part of the Hako project with our good friend Bart Cressa.
Oh, very cool. If you're not familiar with Hako, it's just go to hako.bartcressa.com to learn a little bit more about it. This is a really, really cool solution, I think, to an uncomfortable discussion in the event space, which is we have a lot of really, truly talented people in the communities we circulate in that are struggling right now. And they need a creative outlet. They have to express themselves. They want to be part of something. And Bart, he decided to create this experience called Hako, which is designed as a way for lots of individuals to kind of come together and learn about projection mapping and share techniques. It's that same idea of Siggraph, sharing art and technology. Same thing that what you do here with the head of the curve, sharing art and technology. And in this forum, it's a learning forum. He's pairing artists and technologists together to create projection mapped works of art that will be streamed and presented around the world. It's a bold vision, but that's what Bart's always been known for. And
yes, he has.
There's a unique problem in how do you produce this content so quickly. Bart reached out to me and he was like, 2 questions. One, do you want to participate? Because I think that you'd have a lot to learn and you'd have fun with this. To which I immediately answered yes and wouldn't stop talking. And then when he finally got around to asking the second question, which is, does Ventuz want to provide some software solutions as well to help people learn? Because you guys are After Effects in real time, basically. And to some degree, that's what we are. We're all about data-driven, real-time motion graphics. So, we can help people generate 3D works of art in a 3D engine and either render to disk, as something that could be played back on a traditional media server, or you can go direct to screen. So I was like, yeah, this sounds like a really great thing to be part of. And, we're 5 courses in, 6 courses tonight, and it's a really exciting community. And what we're achieving there is really refreshing. I'm personally looking forward to all of the various little Heikos that are going to be built around the world, and looking forward to seeing the art get up on these screens.
Yeah, I had the, well, of course, we've had Bart on the show in the past. I can't remember how many episodes ago. It feels like months ago now. But I had the opportunity to discuss a lot of Heiko before it kind of came into fruition, and brainstorm ideas on how it can be basically put out to the masses, and how it can be showcased to the masses. And it was really fun because Bart is just an incredible artist and extremely ambitious as well. And, he really does push things beyond the boundaries, and also is a huge inspiration to a lot of artists and a lot of people, which has been really cool to see. Even more so, I think, more today than ever before, which has been really, really cool.
Yeah, for sure. And as somebody who primarily has done literal work, in that I wanted to projection map a car, so I built a 5th scale car and projection mapped a car onto the car. Or the building example, I wanted to create a highly detailed 3D printed model of a building and literally projection map the building as photoreal as possible onto itself. I haven't really stepped outside of the boundaries as an artist in the way that Bart does, right? Like, Bart distorts reality, and he plays with space, and he plays with your ideas about what shape and form should be. And he's a huge fan of using lighting that doesn't make any sense, almost Escher-esque, right? Like, try to confuse the user or viewer as much as possible. And he's one of the few artists that create works of art that you can walk all around. Most of us, myself included, force you into a design eye point because we can't perspective track you. So we put you at that design eye point.
You will be soon.
And then that's what you get. But he's very different, and learning from him is just fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity. And I think that's the really neat part as well about where we are in time and space in the present moment, is those resources are accessible, and a lot of these great artists actually are working and experimenting on their own works again. And you're starting to see a huge outpour of beautiful pieces of art coming out online in all kinds of different mediums and formats, it's just been really, really fun to see things evolve and things develop. And kind of speaking about that kind of evolution in the ways that things are kind of going today, how have you been evolving, and what have you taken away from the time that you've had, let's just say, to yourself over the course of the last few months?
I think one thing that's been a little selfishly nice about the last few months is the amount of time that I had early on to kind of just reflect on opportunities for learning and expanding my palette. And then also getting back in touch with just outside, right? Like most of us spend most of our time inside of a plane or at a hotel or at a venue. And it's difficult to learn and difficult to pick up new tools in that context. So being able to have the opportunity to do that, while I would prefer it was under more controlled circumstances, to be frank, it has been great, and it's also forced me into spaces I never considered working in. We at Ventuz do a lot of live production for esports, and esports is something that was very easy to transition to live streaming events, and it's forced me to have to kind of get up to speed on how to bring content into the live stream, how to deal with this world where, you know, we're trying to produce content experiences in a way that, you know, as people who primarily focused on venue and events, is not something that's normal, right? So it requires learning a whole new lexicon of not only terminology but technology components, and doing a lot of testing and a lot of prototyping. So it's been a really fantastic experience for innovation and getting kind of up and running on a lot of these nascent technologies that I think everyone else is trying to push forward.
Absolutely. I mean, without a doubt, it's been, I think, a huge moment of change for just about everybody, all the viewers, definitely. And speaking of viewers, I'd love to actually just take a quick moment to say a quick shout out to all of our previous Christie folks and Christie colleagues. So I saw that Scott Kennebrew's been on here, and Dan, of course, and Lance. Good to see you guys. Thanks for tuning in. It's been a crazy experience. And my old friend Jason, actually, from a previous life as well, while I was working as a production designer in Atlanta, Georgia, for a pretty good period of time. So it's good to see some familiar faces popping up in the feed and coming in to support the show, which is really, really cool. So, Roy, we're getting kind of close to the wrap-up time, but I only have one more question. It's pretty serious, too.
Oh, okay. Fire. I'm interested. Let me get my interest.
What are your thoughts on cottage cheese?
You know, being lactose intolerant, cottage cheese, and I love the idea of cottage cheese. Being lactose intolerant does stop me from enjoying hard cheeses, but the soft cheeses, that's another story, mate. The idea is great.
The consistency, is it the...
It's the reality of the untold horrors, pains, and sounds that come from my being when I get near a soft cheese like that, due to the aforementioned lactose intolerance. And then, of course, the other things that come along with it, which are unmentionable and awful. But
yeah, we don't need to go there.
Hard cheese win. Cottage cheese, it's for somebody else, and I like the idea of it.
Well, Roy, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Could you let the viewer, well, we've been kind of posting things throughout the session, but how would viewers best get in touch with you?
Well, you can find me at rcanthony@siggraph.org. That's my main email for volunteer side. I use that with both VES and Siggraph. Also, rca@ventuz.com if you want to spam me at work, or check us out at Ventuz Tech on all of the socials, or www.ventuz.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you as well to all the viewers for being here week after week and supporting us through all of this. It's been one hell of a journey so far. Next week, I have another person on by the name of Mark Coxon. We're going to be talking about kind of a different side of the industry. We're going to be speaking about spaces, people in spaces, and how technology evolves spaces, and how to basically implement and use technology within these different environments. So that's going to be a pretty cool conversation. We'll also touch a little bit on that unforeseen thing called sales, and talk a little bit about, you know, business development and things like that as well, which we haven't really touched on the show yet. So that'll be kind of different, a little bit of a different pitch and a little bit of a different side of things. So, Roy, again, thanks a ton for being here, and for all the viewers, as I say every single week, Thanks for watching and stay ahead of the curve. Thanks, everybody.